I thought that Civil War would never end. Now to soothe my head with an evening at Ford's Theater. Oh, no! John Wilkes Booth! Hasta la vista, Edie.
Come on, boy! Finish him off!
Hey everyone, there are spoilers in this vlog, so just be warned. Alright everyone, welcome back to Comic Book Issues. It's time for another one of our famous vlogs. I'm sorry this vlog took a while. I've had a lot of computer issues lately that just got resolved. And this vlog, I'm gonna admit, is not as positive as I'd hoped, and I'm not really sure if that's from the movie or from my experience at the movie. Because to be honest, I had a bad time at the theater I was at. The people behind me kept kicking my seat. I mean, every time somebody got up, they'd kick my seat, so every 10 minutes it was like... And then the guy to the left of me started texting for the last half hour, so I was kind of in a bad mindset during the film just because people were not respecting my space. So this is not going to be an extremely positive review, and I'm not really sure if that's because of the movie or because of my experience during the movie. That said, I did like the film, but as it relates to the Captain America trilogy, Winter Soldier is still probably my favorite. And I don't know if that's because I never read The Winter Soldier. I read Civil War. I was familiar with Captain America's origins, so I kind of knew the stories in Captain America 1 and 3. Winter Soldier I did not, so maybe I had more surprises in that. This is, of course, an adaptation of the event Civil War, and they kind of shoved it into a Captain America movie. And in fairness, I think this should have been Captain America / Iron Man Civil War. I think Iron Man should have shared billing because this was just as much a Tony Stark movie as it was a Steve Rogers one. Granted, a lot of the subplots follow Steve Rogers, but Tony's in there too. Let's break it down by actor, starting of course with Captain America, played by Chris Evans. I think my biggest issue with this was this whole Accords thing, and the reasoning why Captain America and Iron Man were on different sides was never fully explained. I never really understood Steve's reason for why he didn't want to sign the Accords, why he didn't want to take responsibility for his actions. And I heard somebody say that this was the first movie that actually cares what happens to its victims in a superhero film, and yeah, that's kind of a good point. From Avengers, from Winter Soldier, from Avengers 2, we're finally seeing all these innocent lives lost mounting up, and people are getting tired of it. I kind of understood where Steve was coming from. He was worried about the long-term loss of life if they weren't free to act, whereas Iron Man was seeing more of the short-term savings of lives as the benefits from these Accords. So yeah, I guess I kind of understood where both men were coming from, but honestly, Steve was fighting it to such an extent that I never really felt like he believed his own convictions. There was never really a scene where he said, this is wrong and this is why. It was more like, I just feel it's wrong, so I can't do it. I have to go with my heart. Oh man, you guys absolutely broke my heart. You killed off Peggy Carter. And Peggy Carter is the running link of the Marvel Universe. From Captain America to the Agent Carter series to Ant-Man to the modern day Avengers stuff. I mean, she's just been the running link throughout the Marvel Universe. Every time there's a flashback, Peggy Carter was there, so it broke my heart that they killed her off, and, you know, no Haley Atwell in this one other than a still frame, but still, I kind of get where they were coming from, that it was necessary to do that to motivate Steve to follow her advice one last time and fight for what he believed in. But it was emotional that Peggy's gone, and I feel that loss even if the actress wasn't in the movie. I feel the loss of that character very deeply. I think one of the big plot holes in this is one of the big plot holes in this is that they never showed when Steve found out that Bucky killed Tony's parents. There's that scene then, did you know? And he's like, yeah, I knew. Like, what? When? I mean, they were trying to find Bucky for 2 years, so maybe he found it then. But it seemed like that was the kind of thing they should have shown him learning about, so he could have this big secret he was holding back, so they could drive a further wedge between Tony and Steve at the end. That they should have shown. It really bugged me that he just kind of admitted to knowing and we had no clue that he did. Honestly, the ending felt weak. In the comic, it felt like Cap was morally right, but Iron Man kind of wins the Civil War because the people were behind him. Here, I guess nominally Iron Man is the winner because the Accords are in effect and he's working on that side and Cap's an outlaw now, but it just felt like there was no real resolution to the ending. He's like, hey, here's your wish. Use it. You can only use it once when you need it. Like the little flip phone. Like, as soon as you call me, I'll be there. And that's, you know, how we'll get to Avengers Infinity Stones, or whatever they're calling it now, the Infinity Gauntlet with Thanos. The Avengers 3. It just seemed like that little phone bugged me. It seemed like that was too easy a way to fix everything from this movie. You're never going to fix it because Bucky killed Tony's parents. How is he ever going to forgive that? How is he ever going to forgive you for knowing about that and not telling him? How is he going to forgive you for choosing a side with his parents' murderer? Yes, he was brainwashed. Yes, you can understand that, but it's emotional gut response on a huge level. And I mean, they made this thing between Cap and Iron Man more than an argument over ideals like it was in the comic book. They made it so personal. I'm not sure how they're going to get past that, but Tony has his little smirk at the end with his phone. So I get it's going to be all right one day, but I don't know. It just, Captain America is free. The Avengers who were in prison were free at the end. The team who sided with the Accords is so small. War Machine, who's now crippled. Iron Man and Vision. I mean, that's it. It wasn't a great ending. It kind of felt like there was still a lot left to be said about this Civil War. Still things that needed to be done. And I get that some of that's going to carry into the Avengers 3, but it wasn't a great ending. It was kind of a weak ending. Although the one thing I really did like was that Tony talked him into leaving the shield behind. He said, "My dad made that shield." That shield kind of symbolized the Avengers. That shield kind of symbolized the trust between Stark and Rogers. Because only the Starks could make that shield, but only Steve Rogers could use it. So if that trust is broken, that shield's no good to either of them. Cap can't use it because it wasn't really his. It was given to him by the Starks. And the Starks can't use it because they don't have the super soldier serum to give them the reflexes. But it's just a symbol of the trust between them and the fact that it's kind of all beaten up and broken. I'm sure Avengers 3 at some point will, here's your shield back, all repolished and the claws taken out of it. I mean, the ending is essentially compromise, which is not how the Civil War comic ends, and not really how the Civil War movie was meant to end, because he stops Iron Man, who's arguably justified, from killing Bucky, but does it in a way that he just doesn't have to hurt Tony, just depowers him and gives him time to get Bucky out of there. It was a happy ending almost, and Civil War shouldn't have ended that way, because ultimately it leaves the Avengers in a very broken state, but we'll talk about that more. Tony Stark, once again played by Robert Downey Jr., is the best thing about these movies. He's funny, he's got charisma, he can really play up the pain and pathos. One of the big questions about this series has always been whatever happened to his mom and dad. And we finally find out. And tying it in to the whole Winter Soldier thing, I kind of knew right away that that's who was in the car, and it had to blow up at some point in Tony and Bucky and Steve's face, and it did it at the end. And that was a good little plot thread that they played well, and I'm glad we finally kind of got some closure on whatever happened to Howard. I'm not sure if breaking him up with Pepper was a good idea or a bad idea. I suppose it was just meant to put him in a more desperate kind of pathetic place where he's kind of reaching for these extreme solutions to problems instead of kind of working things out with his friends and family like he should. I was wondering what were in those bags in the back of Howard's car. I assume it was the super soldier serum they used on Bucky that they used to create the Winter Soldiers in Russia that were then put on ice, but they never really explained what they were. They never explained why he had them. I mean, it gives Bucky a reason to kill him, but it doesn't explain how he got them. So there was there were some things that needed to be said in this movie that weren't, plot-wise. Tony, Robert Downey Jr., he does play the guilt card well. You can see that it's killing all these people. He still has the PTSD from Iron Man 3 a little bit. It's not as bad as it was, I don't think. He's still making the wrong choices for the right reasons, like he did when he created Ultron. What else? The scenes with Spider-Man, I think, were his best ones, where he's kind of goofing around with hitting on May, where he's kind of, pushing and teasing Spider-Man a little bit. So I thought those were really good. So I'm glad he's going to be in the Spider-Man movie. So that should be a lot of fun to have Tom Holland and Robert Downey Jr. playing off each other in that film. The Black Widow, played by Scarlett Johansson, was an odd choice for Iron Man's side. I always thought that, and I almost wonder if she was playing the double agent role right from the start. Like, she said she was going to side with Tony, but was just kind of waiting for her moment to help Cap. I don't think that's what they were going for, but it just seemed like, for such a woman who had such contempt for authority a few films ago, she was an odd choice. And they even pointed that out. It's like, didn't you tell Congress to fuck off? And she's like, well, I'm just reading the landscape. Like, since when are you the one who plays it safe? You're the Black Widow. I'm just not sure if she was right to have as the voice of reason character. I think Vision did that a little better. How did she get to walk away after attacking T'Challa? He's a prince. Isn't that a really bad crime to attack not only Avenger, but, another nation's royalty? I mean, she kept stunning him with her gauntlets. Shouldn't she have been arrested right away? But she was still walking around the hospital before she takes off. And the Black Panther, played by Chadwick Boseman. Wow. Great character. I think he was probably my favorite character in the whole movie. And it's weird, because I realize he and Iron Man kind of do this double act, even though they're not really interacting that much, where Iron Man is the politician, then he becomes like the angry man at the end, whereas it starts out with T'Challa angry over his father's death, and by the end, he's the politician, he's the guy doing the right thing, and he's another guy who jumps from Team Stark to Team Cap. So the costume worked, the effects worked, and I like that he had all this anger, all this rage, this blind need to get revenge on Bucky, and then by the end, that whole scene with Zemo was great, where he's just kind of realizing how self-destructive this whole thing has been, not only to the two sides, but also to himself, and so he kind of lets go of revenge and goes for justice. And he was very charismatic. I liked his scenes with Scarlett Johansson. I liked his scenes in the fights and battles. Chadwick Boseman, what a find. I'm really, really looking forward to the Black Panther movie now. I've never been a huge Black Panther fan. I read some of the Marvel Knights comic when it first came out. This really won me over. Sebastian Stan was back for a third time as Bucky, and I can appreciate that they tried to make Bucky this complex character with these multiple personalities, the sleeper agent mode, the friend to Steve mode, the kind of mixed up, confused kid. The problem is, Sebastian Stan isn't that good an actor. He looks the part, don't get me wrong, but that is a very, very nuanced, subtle role they wrote for him, and I don't think he was able to pull that off. He was fine in the action sequences. The action in this movie was great. But Bucky could have used a better actor. It's fine to play the wide-eyed zombie in Winter Soldier, but you can't kind of do it in this film and then go back to being the friend from the first movie. It just needed some more subtlety and differences in the performance that I just wasn't seeing there. The Falcon by Anthony Mackie. Now, he's the guy I would have liked to have seen in the moral center role that they gave to the Black Widow. He's the guy who's been in the military, so maybe he could see the side of following orders and saving lives through diplomacy, but also he's also the vigilante working with Captain America, so he could see the side of saving people without bureaucracy slowing them down. I like that they went the Jarvis route with Redbird and made him this tech thing that fit in with movies. It doesn't work to have this doddering old English butler in the Avengers mansion. Redbird, it doesn't make sense for him to be a mutant who controls this eagle. They don't even have mutants in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So instead, make it this little remote-controlled drone that flies around and aids him in battle. I like that. I wish Anthony Mackie had more to do. The problem with the cast this size is a lot of actors, a lot of characters who are really good get underwritten. Agent 13, played by Emily Van de Kamp. I'm not sure she needed to be Sharon Carter. I mean, she always was in the comics, but I'm not all of a sudden surprised, oh, she's actually Peggy's niece. Like, wait, what? It seemed very tacked on. I mean, I was surprised when it didn't come up in Winter Soldier. I was surprised it did come up in Civil War. Here she's just playing the Nick Fury part where she's funneling needed information to the guys on the run. Hawkeye, played by Jeremy Renner, who's been a favorite character of mine, but man, what a jackass. This is almost like the comic book Hawkeye replacing the movie Hawkeye. How do you blame Tony Stark at the end for your coming out of retirement, for your siding with the guys who are criminals, for your getting arrested for aiding the guys who were criminals? I understand doing Captain America a favor, but man, that bugged me at that last scene. Like, you're in jail because you made a choice. At least own it. I mean, it's one thing for Hawkeye to come in there if he doesn't have a family, but he did. We established that in Avengers: Age of Ultron. And now Velma and the kids are all alone. And who's gonna bundle the hay? Who's gonna milk the cows, huh? Answer me that, Hawkeye. Not you. You're in jail. There's a guy who should have been talking about what was going on for Cap's side, who could have been making the point of how the governments would just keep them from saving people, you know? Paul Rudd, well, he was funny and I'm not sure this was a funny movie. I'm not sure that his humor worked with the tone of this movie. That said, he stole the show with the giant man scene at the airport. Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen were kind of the best example of the two sides clashing. And I liked the growing relationship there. I liked that they were heading towards Scarlet Witch and Vision as a couple, like in the comics. I mean, it's clear that he has developed feelings for her, and she did not feel good about kind of turning his super density on and leaving him. Again, you could tell there was affection there, but that being on either side of the conflict was driving them apart. In Civil War, it all starts because inexperienced heroes blow up a town. Here, it starts because Scarlet Witch, while trying to save Captain America's life, throws crossbones up in the air and he blows up and damages part of a building. And I guess a couple dozen people were killed. I mean, okay, I guess, but wouldn't it have been more dramatic to blow up a city like in the comic book? They really lessened the disaster that starts all this. I was worried they were going to make it Spider-Man who caused the disaster, and that's how he came into the movie. But I like that it was the Scarlet Witch and her inexperience that caused it, and she kind of pays the price for it. So again, Elizabeth Olsen, Paul Bettany didn't have much time. I did like the one scene where they're making dinner and he's talking about the gem, and then you kind of realize he's not her friend, he's her jailer. That was a good scene. That was good. This is a good movie. I keep talking about what I didn't like, but let me reinforce. This was a good movie. I liked it. I just had certain problems with the stories. I had problems with how certain characters acted. So it's a good movie, not a great movie. Zemo, played by Daniel Bruhl, was a good nuanced villain, and we don't get that too much. He's not one of the big, loud, overblown characters like Loki or Red Skull. Here, he's just a guy in pain, and he's going to take that out on the people who've hurt him, which is not Zemo in the comics. He's an egomaniac in the comics. Here, he's just a guy who's lost too much, and it's driven him over the edge. And I like that. It was a good performance. I hope they do something with Daniel Bruhl's character going forward. Spider-Man, played by Tom Holland. A lot of people are saying this is the best Spider-Man yet. I'm not sure I'm there with them, but it was a good performance. The humor levels were way up, and that's important. Tobey Maguire in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films never cracked a joke, and it was just the most depressing, sad sack I'd ever seen, and I wanted to kill myself by the end of the second movie. Andrew Garfield, I liked much better. I've made it clear I'm a big fan of the Amazing Spider-Man films. I'm sorry they've come to an end prematurely, but what I liked in there is that he was telling jokes, and he had the sense of humor right. There's a certain attitude you have to have, and I saw that in Tom Holland. Let me just say, I think the Spider-Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe has potential. I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad, as I said, that they're bringing Tony Stark in for that one, because I thought Tom Holland, and he had great chemistry. I thought he had good chemistry with Aunt May. People were saying, why is Aunt May hot? I'm like, well, she was always hot. She just eventually got old. You know, we're just winding the clock back a little. I've put unfortunate images in people's heads with that, I know. One thing I didn't like was that they brought in Everett Ross from the Black Panther comic to run the Raft prison, but he's working under Thunderbolt Ross. It's two Rosses. Are they related? No. Also in the comics, Everett Ross is this milquetoast loser who's kind of saddled with being the Black Panther's government liaison. Here he's like this badass running this prison, like, hey, try me! And wow, Bilbo can do an American accent. I saw the Doctor Strange trailer. Benedict Cumberbatch sounds like House, who is another British actor doing an American accent. And when I talk like this, I have an American accent, and I am not British. But at least, you know, Martin Freeman had a good accent, I'll give him that. But it wasn't the character from the comics. It was just his character with that name, which they do sometimes in these. The best thing about this movie was the action. Great fight scenes. That superhero battle at the end was everything I wanted. It's like in Age of Ultron, the best thing, and that was Hulkbuster versus Hulk. This is that to the next level. The best parts are, of course, Giant Man taking on everybody, and I think Spider-Man taking on Bucky and Falcon were like my favorite parts. Like the shrinking kind of causing all those disasters. I thought it was a water truck. Or Black Widow's going to take him down instantly, and then he just shrinks. Like, what? And then, better yet, Paul Rudd as Ant-Man getting into the armor and like, whose voice is that? Hey, it's me, I'm Ant-Man. So, a lot of fun with the action scenes. That big superhero fight scene at the end is worth the price of admission. Not at the end. 2/3. I appreciated the fake out with the Russian Winter Soldiers. I thought, oh, Tony's going to join them, and then Bucky, and Cap are going to take down these Winter Soldiers in Russia, the 5 of them, and it's going to be they're going to be on the same page again. But then I'm thinking in the back of my mind, well, wait a minute. I haven't seen that scene that's in all the trailers of Cap and Bucky fighting Iron Man. That's still to come. So there has to be something. And the nice thing about that superhero action scene and then the fake out with the Russian Winter Soldiers was it made me forget about that car crash, that little MacGuffin waiting to blow up in everyone's faces. So there were good things about this plot that I liked. There were some really clever moves on the Russo brothers' parts that sucked you into the story, made you forget certain things when you needed to forget them. So, as I said, going into Avengers 3 or even Thor Ragnarok, the Marvel Universe is in an interesting place now. How will this affect Thor? How will this affect Hulk? I guess we're going to have to wait for Ragnarok to see. But basically, all but 3 superheroes are now on the run, on the lam. I mean, it essentially leaves the Avengers broken, and they're going to have to come back together. And again, there's a little magic genie in a bottle. Here's a little flip. I need you! And then, oh, we're back again. You know, that seemed a little too easy to me. A little too obvious of a setup. Still, there are rogue superheroes running around right now, and that's an interesting place to put the Marvel Universe, and I hope they explore that a little bit. If not here, then maybe on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We'll see. As I said, I think the Winter Soldier is still probably my favorite of the Cap trilogy. This was more Avengers 2.5. And with all this stuff going on, with all these cast members, certain choices were made that I didn't think worked for the characters. Certain bits of information were left out, perhaps for time. A lot of little things didn't work in this movie, but the big picture overall does. It's fun. You'll enjoy it. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I'd probably give it about a 3 out of 5 if I had to. So right now we're in the broken stage. Avengers 3 is going to be the come back together, save the day stage, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe on a happy note, then reboot it and start doing it all over again. Because I don't think they're going to do the Marvel Cinematic Universe forever. You can't keep pushing these actors in these roles for a long time. Well, they've been doing it for a while with the X-Men. Well, anyway, that's it for now. The next vlog is going to be X-Men Apocalypse. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm hearing mixed things from different comic book news sites. But until then, this is Comic Book Issues, and I'm your host, The Last Angry Geek.